And one. Hey guys, welcome to another installment to our YOUmedia Virtual Podcast. So excited. Thank you guys for tuning in. I am your co-host, Shamir, and this podcast is brought to you by the Miami-Dade Public Library System. Today we have a very, very special guest, and I absolutely can't wait to have this really dope discussion. Before we get started, let's go ahead and everyone introduce yourselves, staff first, and before we get to our guest.
Mi nombre es Kristi Miller.
And I'm Shante.
I'm Rachel. I'm an instructor at South Dade Regional Library.
Awesome. That's all the staff. And for today's podcast, we have Miss Shante Haymore-Kearney, who is a trauma-informed educator and wellness professional who is here to, go through an activity with us, which I think is really cool and new. And then we'll go ahead and do a Q&A after. So Shante, how about you give us an introduction about who you are and what is it that you do?
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for having me on YOUmedia and to the Miami Public Library System. You guys don't know this, but I'm a huge fan of the library system personally. So big shout out. So I'm super excited to be here. Like Shamir said, my name is Shante Haymore-Kearney. I'm a trauma-informed educator and wellness professional. So basically what that means is that I work in a trauma-informed environment for a nonprofit named Kristi House, Kristi House Child Advocacy Center. And what we do at Kristi House is we provide evidence-based trauma-focused therapy for children who are survivors of abuse, survivors of sex trafficking, and survivors of other types of trauma. I do education and outreach for them. So as the education and outreach specialist, I go out into the community to teach safety prevention, abuse prevention, human trafficking prevention, education to youth and adults. And I also teach around trauma-informed education about like how stress affects children, affects our bodies, affects our decisions, and things that we'll go into a little bit later. Aside from that, I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own wellness company called Brown Goddess Collective. And Brown Goddess Collective is a wellness space specializing in yoga, mindfulness, and women's circles for brown and Black women. It's really a space for us to come together, to gather and support, to uplift each other, and to practice these amazing tools of mindfulness. So that is a little bit of who I am. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a Miami native, and I'm just super happy to be here with all you guys.
Wow, thank you for taking this opportunity to speak with us. So we're gonna go ahead and transition to an activity you have for us. Go ahead and take
okay. We'll just jump right into it. So basically, what we'll do today, before I start, I want to talk about a little bit, and maybe have a little bit of discussion around like what mindfulness is. It's a buzzword that we hear a lot, but not everyone really understands what it is, and it's even fewer people understand why we want to even be mindful, like engage in a mindfulness practice. So mindfulness really is just the practice of focusing, like being hyper aware and focusing on like ideally one thing at a time, and just noticing like what you're doing, how you're feeling in that moment. So it's just about really being super present, and with that presence, you allow your mind, your body to kind of come to a resting place where you can make better decisions, where you can react and respond responsibly and accordingly, and where you can kind of operate from like your higher self. Like, how some people say, like, I'm living my best life, like I'm being my best self. Well, when you're mindful, you can operate from that best self perspective as opposed to operating from like place of fear or judgment or like being biased and things of that nature. So one of the main ways that we engage in mindfulness practices is through breath work and also like moving energy. And energy comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes we feel really lethargic, right? Especially at the end of the day, or if there's been a lot of heavy stuff that's happened. Or sometimes we have too much energy and we like can't stop moving, we can't sit still, our legs are shaking, our mind is going, and we strive to have balance and like to come to the state of equilibrium where we can just like be present, right, and be available for what is actually happening. So we do that with engaging with the breath. And you guys are down, you want to like try it and see how it feels, how it works?
Let's do it.
As long as I don't cry.
As long as what?
As I don't cry.
I can't promise that. But you know what? I can almost guarantee that you're not going to cry right now. But I will say that's a great point. When we are engaged in mindfulness practices like meditation or yoga, or even like anything that has us shifting our physical or mental state, it is really normal for emotions to come up, right? And those emotions that come up are usually based off of something that's happened in the past, or like things like the emotional trauma or like emotional baggage that we store in our body. There's a saying that goes, the issues are in the tissues. So meaning that like when you experience something, and we'll talk a little bit more about this afterwards with some of the questions, but when you experience something, that experience doesn't just go away because time has passed. It lives in our body, it lives in our psyche, it creates patterns of behaviors, so that the next time a situation comes about that kind of looks or feels similar to that, we end up responding from like those old patterns or that old experience instead of what's actually happening right now. And I can give a really concrete example. If you've ever been in a car accident, I have, I live in Miami, so the odds of being in a car accident are like pretty high. But if you've been in a car accident, afterwards, even though the car accident has come and gone, it's passed, when you drive down that same intersection or that same street, or you see that same car or a similar type of car like approaching you, like you can automatically like get tense, right? Your heart may start beating fast, and then you're reminded of that experience as if it's happening right now, even though it was like 3 months ago.
Wow.
Raise your hand if you ever experienced something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And it happens.
The rain, that's how I got in the accident. And so when it starts raining the highway, I'm like, oh, come on, I'm gonna go slow.
Yeah, because that's like a trigger, or a trauma trigger is how we relate to it. So being mindful helps us ground ourselves and center ourselves in this present moment so that we can look around and be like, okay, I'm freaking out, but I also realize that I'm safe and like I'm okay. And in this moment, I'm just driving down the street and I'm not in actual physical harm. And so we can talk ourselves out of those fear patterns, those fear-based patterns. And I have a lot more that I'll say about that. So now let me ask, are you ready to experience this? Even if you cry? Okay, great. All right, so basically, I'm going to show you about like 1 to 2 different types of ways of breathing that can really help you shift your mindset and your mood and even your physical state pretty quickly, right? So the first thing that I want you to do is just get comfortable. And first I'll do like a little litmus test. So just, if you were to assess for yourself, like how you feel right now on a scale from 1 to 5. 5 meaning like you feel amazing, you feel good physically, mentally, spiritually. all the way down to 1, meaning like you just wish you could like crawl under a rock and come out next week. So just assess for yourself where you're at, and if you want to, you can even just hold up that number so that I can kind of see where you're at. You don't have to if you don't want to. Okay. I'm at like a 5 today, so I might even need to bring it down. Okay, so we're kind of all across the board. Perfect. No judgment. So that's another thing. Like when you are practicing mindfulness, you want to practice just observing things without judgment. You don't need to be anything or anyone or anywhere other than where you are right now. There's no wrong way to be you. So we'll start with 5 very simple breaths, and then we'll go into a little bit more detailed breath work. So I want you to place your hands on like the lowest part of your belly, and just let your belly relax. Just take a deep breath out. And then on the inhale, you're going to breathe into the lowest part of the belly. Breathe in, and then start to feel your ribs and all the way up to the chest. And then on the exhale, you breathe out, relaxing the chest, the ribs, and the belly, taking the breath all the way out. And on the next inhale, inhale through the lower belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhale through the nose from the chest, ribs, and belly. Good, so let's continue. So inhale all the way till you get to the very top of the breath, and this time you'll hold the breath. So hold the breath in the body for just a second, and then exhale through the nose all the way down to the very bottom of the breath, and hold the breath out for a second or two. And again, inhale through the nose. Just making your body big and full like a balloon, and then hold at the top. Exhale through the nose. Empty out all the air, and then hold at the bottom. This time we'll inhale for a count of 4. So inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 2, 1, and exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath out for 2, 1, and last time, inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. This time, hold the breath, relax the shoulders, relax the face, sip in a little bit more air, hold, and slowly exhale for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold the air out. Good, and inhale through the nose. And open the mouth, exhale. Great. So we're gonna continue with another pattern of breathing. So just try and stay in your zone. You may need to open your eyes to look. This breath work is called alternate nostril breathing. It's like one of my favorites. It's really good for balancing the nervous system, balancing the brain and the body, and creating a sense of calm. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to use our right hand. We're going to bring our right thumb to our right nostril. So side note, a lot of things in like yoga and mindfulness are like really weird looking, and like they're like kind of strange, like what in the heck is this? But it really works also. I mean, yoga mindfulness has been around for like thousands of years, since the beginning of time. So these are ancient practices that are scientifically proven. So just like go with the flow. And again, just try and release the judgment. It's okay if you look weird. So do we, all right? So you're gonna take your thumb, bring it to your right nostril. You're gonna take your 2 peace fingers. You're gonna bring it to the center of your eyebrows, okay? And what this breath is gonna do, we're gonna alternate breathing through our nostrils. So you're gonna take the right thumb, close up the right nostril, and breathe in through the left. All the way in. Then you'll take the ring finger, plug the left nostril, and breathe out through the right. And then you'll inhale through the right nostril, breathe in as far as you can, cover with the thumb, and exhale through the left. Let's do that again. Inhale left. See if you can relax your jaw and relax your eyes. Cover the left nostril, breathe out through the right. Inhale through the right. Cover and exhale through the left. Let's do that 2 more times. So just let the breath be long. Just try and do your best. One more time. Inhale, wherever you're at. Exhale. Release the hands. Breathe in and out through both nostrils. You can even sit for a second. A really good way to tune in is by placing one or both hands over your heart. See if you can find and feel your heartbeat. Sometimes it's hard to sit still. You don't have to close your eyes. You can look down. And I want you to find or create an intention for the rest of your day. So no matter when you're watching this, just think about the rest of the day that you have and find a word that describes how you want your day to go. So maybe that's peaceful. Maybe that's at ease. Maybe you want to be productive, forgiving, or perhaps you're just looking for more love and appreciation, to be valued or to be seen. So let the word come to you. And just see yourself moving through your day with that word as your guiding light. So as your North Star, your lighthouse. Take another deep breath in. Open the mouth and let it out. You can release the hands. Just kind of give your hands a little bit of a shake. Awesome. Good. You can even roll the neck around. We get a lot of tension stuck in our shoulders and in our back. Great. There's so much more that I can do, but it also only takes a little bit to make a big difference. So let me ask you to just kind of check in with yourself and see right now, how do you feel? If you were to give yourself a number, rate yourself from the scale of 5 to 1. 5 being amazing and 1 being under a rock. How do you guys feel right now? I'm like at a 4, which for me, that's great. Okay. Everyone's went up, right? Mine went down because I was like, I had a lot of energy, so I needed to kind of come down, but everyone improved.
Yeah.
Great. So that's a mindfulness activity. You can do that anywhere, anytime. Especially like releasing the tension in the belly. We hold a lot of energy there when we're going through stress. And right now we're going through a lot of stress. So hopefully not only you guys, but the people who are watching it can take that into your day. And remember to use the breath. The breath is life, right? And it's a gift. So it helps us to be present and grateful.
Yeah. Can we get feedback?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, man, breathing is important. I know a lot of people spend the time not actually thinking about that. But, I do believe, like, God, he created us through his breath. And so, like, breathing is a gift. You're right. And it is a gift of life. So I think breathing, people take that for granted. So being able to, but I was stressed out when I couldn't breathe through both of my nostrils. When we were squeezing one, I was like, come on, why has it to be so hard? I was like, I'm about to suffocate. So it felt better when I was able to breathe through both of my nostrils. But yeah, breathing.
Yeah, breath is life, absolutely. And it's good to have those moments where we breathe in on purpose, right? And remember, it kind of wakes us up. It brings us back to now, like, okay, and here I am. Because we stray away so easily, so often, and it's natural. But we come back to the breath, and it brings us back to this only moment.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for this exercise. I feel relaxed right now. Especially with like what you said, like so much is going on. A lot of people are stressed right now because of what's going on. So I hope the teens, whoever's watching this, will definitely practice these breathing exercise for sure. So with that being said, I guess we could go and ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Yeah, let's jump right to it.
What we do?
Yeah, what's up, Chris?
Look in the camera and let's tell the teens. Take a breath. Y'all ready? 3, 2, 1. Take a deep breath.
Take a. Oh. Were we supposed to say it together?
That's great. A collective breath, which, honestly, like that's what we need right now. There is so much going on. And when I teach breath work and mindfulness, especially in the wake of, George Floyd's, like some of his last words were, I can't breathe, we've heard that before with Eric Gardner. Coronavirus is a respiratory virus, right? So when we breathe, let's not forget like how blessed we are to be able to have the gift of clean air flowing in and out through our lungs. And it also literally physiologically changes our mindset, our brain, the chemicals that are flowing through our body. And it gets us into a state of our parasympathetic nervous system state, which means basically like we're able to like rest and chill out. It's like taking a chill pill.
Yeah, totally. And it's free. You could do it anytime, anywhere, So free medicine.
That part.
When my kids are angry, I have a almost 2-year-old. I'm sure you can relate, especially when they get angry. You have to try to calm them down. What do you tell them? Breathe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. Take a deep breath. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So let's jump to our first question. Probably have time for a couple questions. But the first one I would love to ask, I think, is what is trauma? I know like the word trauma alone is always being thrown around. Like, okay, trauma this, trauma that. So for you being an educator, and I think this is something our teens could definitely benefit of, what is the definition of trauma? What is trauma? And how could we define someone being in a state of trauma?
So trauma is basically an event or an experience that essentially overwhelms the nervous system. It's an event or experience that either causes harm to someone's body or the perception of harm to someone's body. So you don't actually have to be hurt in order to experience trauma. You can be, at an event and there could be a fight that breaks out or a shooting that breaks out, and you're not necessarily like impacted physically, but you are traumatized, right, by that experience. So the perception of injury to either yourself or to someone close to you, usually someone who's a caretaker, or someone who's, in charge of like a loved one, a relationship like that. And when that trauma happens, it alters your ability to cope, to make rational decisions, to get yourself back into that state of, like I said, that parasympathetic state where your body is at ease and at rest. It makes you feel like you have to like you're on edge, right? And traumas happen all types of forms. There's actually 3 common types of trauma. There's an acute trauma. That's something that happens, has a start and a finish, and it's over, right? Like a car accident, a shooting, something like that, you know. The effects obviously are significant, can be significant, but the event is done over. Then there's chronic trauma. That's a trauma that happens over a period of time, extended period of time. And that could be domestic violence, sexual abuse, living with a parent who has mental health issues, having an incarcerated parent. It's traumatic. It's an extension of chronic trauma. There's not necessarily a stop or a finish. It's just kind of ongoing. And then lastly is a complex trauma, which is it's like a combination of chronic trauma, meaning it usually happens over extended period of time also, but it happens at the hands usually of someone who's supposed to take care of you. So it's very confusing, particularly with children. Like child sexual abuse is a complex trauma, especially if it's, you know, at the hands of a caregiver, someone who is supposed to love you, but yet at the same time is hurting you also.
She's a mom, you guys.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, so that's what trauma is. And I think the second part of the question is, how do we know if we're experiencing trauma?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So when we experience trauma, our whole body reacts, whether we know it or not. And so we have, our body is so amazing. It sends our mind signals, our mind sends our body signals, and it helps us respond and appropriately when situations call for it. So if you have experienced shooting, right? And the shooting is over, but the kid is in school and someone walks into the classroom and drops their books down and it makes that loud noise, and the kid, you know, like starts to like jump or react. Well, what happens is like you can see like the eyes get big, the brain sends signals to the body, hormones start to course through our body, adrenaline starts to say like, holy crap, like we have to do something to protect ourselves. And we protect ourselves in 3 different ways. We either fight, we flight, which means like we flee, or we freeze. Like, have you ever been so scared you couldn't even like move, you know? And when we do that, our pupils dilate, like we may feel restriction in the throat, like unable to breathe, dry mouth, our heart starts to pound, our stomach gets into knots, right? And we just feel like icky on the inside. Even after the trauma is over, some of those feelings, if we haven't dealt with the trauma, those feelings will continue to happen. So a lot of kids who have experienced trauma will have migraines, unexplainable migraines, upset stomach a lot, or digestive issues, things of that nature. So they're unable to concentrate in school or in class. It alters our cognitive ability, our ability to understand and to learn. Just think about, like, if you are afraid, how can you focus on learning math? As if math isn't hard enough already, you know? Speaking from my personal opinion. So when we're in a state of trauma, we're literally not in our right mind. I've heard people say that, like, I'm just not in my right mind. I can't deal. I can't, you know, we're overwhelmed. So those are some of the ways that you may know that you're in trauma. And a lot of times also too, it affects our sleep. our eating habits. We may, depending on the age of the person, you may find yourself engaging in unhealthy coping skills, smoking, drinking, risky sexual behavior, self-inflicted harm, inflicting harm on someone else, you know, hurt people. So we want to make sure that we, you know, do our best to do our own self-work, our own inner work to heal, which is why therapy, trauma-focused therapy for those who've experienced trauma and need that support. That's why it's so important, because it just doesn't go away on its own.
I have a question. Can nightmares and a lack of sleep for someone who experienced a traumatic event be?
Vianney, we could. You're very low. Just.
I'm low.
That was better.
Hear her.
Can you hear me better
I can
now?
hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Can nightmares also be a result of trauma, like constantly having nightmares?
Absolutely. Constantly having nightmares, lack of sleep, insomnia. Absolutely. Especially with younger kids too. Like, that's at Kristi House, we educate adults and parents about the signs of trauma, so that they can help identify, like, if their child is going through something or has been abused. And that's definitely one of the symptoms. Also, children, depending on the age, may regress with their development. So you may have a child who once was very talkative and like outgoing, and now they're very withdrawn, or aggressive or despondent, or even the opposite. They may be very needy and clingy and very attached to people who they may not necessarily have like a strong attachment to, like a substitute teacher, you know, and the next thing you know, like they're really attached to that person, even though the emotional bond isn't there. It's kind of like of someone who's experienced trauma.
Is Kristi's house also like a homeless shelter? Or
No, it's not. We are located near Jackson Hospital, so basically right downtown. The kids who come to Kristi House come in for their therapy sessions and other appointments. We are also housed in the same building as the state attorney's office, so kids can get their forensic interviews done, their medical exams done, meet with guardian ad litem, who is a representative of represents kids in court, and things of that nature. We do have a program called Project Gold. Gold stands for Girls Owning Their Lives and Dreams. And it's a program where girls who have been rescued from the sex trafficking industry go and get rehabilitated. They have therapy programs, peer mentorship, life skills, job training, teen education, and things of that nature.
awesome.
That's
It's pretty
awesome.
awesome. Thank you.
I have a question for you. So, for those who don't know, what is race-based trauma?
What is race-based trauma?
Can you hear me?
Is that what you
Yeah.
said? So race-based trauma is basically, well, we're going through it right now. We're always going through it. Black and brown people, Black people especially, but it's basically, you know, understanding that these events that have been happening with police killings and other killings of unarmed Black men and women, it's a collective trauma, and it's based off of the context of race, right? And a lot of times, I think non-Black persons may not understand that. They may see it as an isolated incident, but we see it as like a piling on. It's just one more straw on the camel's back. And with that being said, we have what happens is that we'll start to generate a narrative in our own minds of, you know, the judgment that we experience, the fear that we have. Do we feel safe? Do we, you know, the different ways that we have to like assimilate ourselves to fit into a box to make other people feel safe enough so that we can have our own well-being in check. Those are all part of the race-based trauma that we feel and that we experience. And it's race-based because it comes down from generations upon generations. So it's also generational trauma as well. An undocumented person from, South America or Central America, they have their own race-based trauma, especially now with immigration policies that are happening. So, they may have their own sense of like, I can't speak, I can't let people know my ethnicity, my accent, or that my parents work in the fields or on the farms. Like, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be, separated from my family, I'm going to be sent back home. All those types of things based on the systematic oppression of the people are factors in race-based trauma.
And you don't even have to experience it for it, though I have, but you don't even have to experience it for yourself. Like, just alone watching it, other people go through it and thinking like, hey, that could happen to you if you were to go to a certain place or whatever. That could, just alone witnessing it could be traumatizing as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And witnessing and watching someone else go through traumatic experience, but being affected by it for yourself is actually called secondary traumatic exposure. So, or vicarious trauma. So it's like, it happened over there, but I feel it, right? So like, that's why we tell people, be mindful of what you watch on TV, the news that you watch, when you watch it. Like, I can't watch the news before I go to bed because I don't sleep well, and I'll stay up at night. And also now I'm raising a little Black son. So my perspective, though I've always been sensitive to it, my perspective has broadened. And even though he's only 4, I still have those thoughts in my head. Like, when is that going to shift from, oh, he's so cute, to, oh, I'm scared or concerned, or he's not getting the treatment that he should get. So all those things, like that thought process, those narratives that are going through our head are all very real, and it's all based off of even seeing other people's trauma. For sure. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I could definitely. Oh, sorry, Liani.
Oh, no, sorry. I was saying thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for our teens to also know, because they're constantly looking at social media and they might not have the language to put forth as to how they're feeling. So it's very insightful.
Mm-hmm.
So they can see the world through a different lens and navigate through the world and also protect themselves and their heart as well.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with the school shootings too. Like, just because a mass shooting hasn't happened at someone's school doesn't mean that, you don't have to have a mass shooting at someone's school for people to be afraid to now go to school, right? And feel unsafe in the school. Or when you see the police officers, who have their gun on their holster in the cafeteria, like that's scary, and it's based off of someone else's experience, but it affects you just the same. That's very real.
That's why you don't pop balloons in the hallway.
That's why what?
You don't pop balloons in the hallway.
He's a comic relief. I love it. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But yeah, I definitely could relate, even looking back. Like, I don't know, it's been so hard, especially with social media, because it's like every day is just something new. Like this morning I saw there was another death. This teen from California got hung, apparently, which they're now investigating. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know, it's been so hard, especially like for me personally, like wanting to like get away from social media, but at the same time, like it's hard because you want to be informed, like what's going on and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I can't imagine like what the teens are going through, it's because they're at that age, going back to like Trayvon Martin and all these things. It's really hard to kind of fathom. So I guess another question, this one's kind of towards us as staff. Sorry, Chris, did you have a question?
I do. I really do. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You mentioned like therapy. It's, there's a stigma, especially for Black people, that therapy is not needed or it's like a white people thing. So like, yeah, how does therapy help? Because I know in therapy, I've actually went to therapy myself, me and my wife. It's pretty dope. And what's going to be brought up are those traumatizing, experiences that you've had. But yeah, a lot of people don't, especially in the Black community, they don't like the idea of therapy. Can you just talk about that in your experience?
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing and being open to share that you've experienced personally therapy as well. Full disclosure, I have too. One of the best things that I did, that my husband and I did since this quarantine, was to start couples therapy. And it was like so amazing, and it was virtual, and it was very helpful. And I'll take a step back for a second from therapy and kind of speak into why it's helpful to just even have a neutral third party professional to listen objectively and to share his or her insight, because sometimes we're just so close to the issue that we can't see it, right? There's a saying, like, you can't see the forest through the trees, which basically means like you're in the middle of it, so it's hard to like step out and see the whole picture. And we as people only operate from our own perspective, right? Like that's how else are we going to operate through this world? So we see the world through our lens, and we forget that and speaking for youth especially, we forget that this moment in time, whatever the moment is, the challenge, that it's just like a blip on the screen, that this moment is going to pass by eventually one way or another. Things will change, but therapy and therapists help us remember that. They help bring us back to ourselves, and kind of like sift through the weeds of like all the drama that's going on in our heads, and help us remember, and also put strategies in place for us to move forward and to move ahead. So yes, there is definitely a stigma about therapy, and like that's a white people thing, or like Black folks don't do that, or I'm not gonna spend my money on some therapy. Like I don't have problems. But the truth of it is that therapy is just an opportunity to be heard and to have a new perspective shared with you. And when it comes to trauma-focused therapy, like if you've experienced something significantly traumatic, the therapy that we provide at Kristi House is evidence-based to help you move through that therapy and on the other side as a survivor and a thriver. And we do this with kids starting as early as like 3 or 4 years old, really helping them, first of all, also understanding too that the instant that happened to them isn't what defines them, and that they're bigger than that whole entire incident. So that you don't have to be defined by sexual abuse or domestic abuse or physical abuse or anything like that, that you're bigger than that. And it helps you see that world from like a different, higher perspective, right? And then when you can do that, then you can start to like align your choices and your actions to get the desired results that you want. And so that's my spiel about that, about how and why therapy is important.
You said you've worked with kids as young as 3 or 4.
At Kristi House, yes, 3 and 4 years old, yeah.
People don't know they could have traumas as early as 3 or 4, even earlier, like that. They, it's there. People don't know that. What?
Yeah, and it's not sometimes until later when you find yourself in a pattern that's like, why do I keep dating this same type of person, right? Or choosing the same type of person, or Why do I keep having these same type of related? Like, if you find yourself in a situation where like all these negative things continue to happen, quote, to you, then there's generally like, we're attracting these situations into our life. Not that, and I'm not saying that it's your fault, but I'm saying like the lens of which we see our life through is how we attract things to us, right? So, you know, it's great to kind of look at, if you're in a place that you're not happy where you're at, then there may be something, there's always something underneath the surface, right? Like, think about the iceberg. 90% of the iceberg is underneath the water. So we got to go underneath, because that trauma informed, like, it creates our belief system. Children who are traumatized, it affects the perception of themselves, of other people, and of the world, right? So you may have someone who's experienced trauma and they're always angry. Like, that person who's always enraged, angry, can't trust anybody. Or conversely, the person who trusts everyone, who just wants so much love and attention and affection because maybe they didn't receive it, or because, you know, maybe that the healthy bonds of what they should have been developing were broken by someone that they trust, and so there's just even more free with that, and they don't have healthy boundaries intact. So it goes both ways.
I just want to share. Sorry, you guys. I'm gonna make this quick. I'm sorry. So sometimes, like, I remember my daughter. She's about to turn 2, but when she was around 1, you know, kids playing in the playground, and then the kid does something they shouldn't do. Don't you push my baby girl? Oh. But I could see it, on all seriousness, the effects of that, and how me and my wife, as her parents, have to step in to help her go through that, to talk to her. So obviously she has her parents to help her through that. But what about the teens who they're not going to go to therapy because they don't have access to it, or they're not even thinking about it. Can they? And I think you mentioned this, you know, just talk with someone who's willing to listen to them about these things. And
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different agencies and organizations out there who do a lot of amazing work to help and support teens and youth. And, you know, a good agency, a good after-school program, or a good, you know, organization will also have their staff trained to be able to identify trauma. Trained by an organization like Kristi House or others to be able to identify trauma. That doesn't mean that that they're therapists, but at least they can have conversations that are more supportive. So I would say, you know, anytime you can find a trusted adult or a trusted person, or even a friend who can help you talk to someone, like a safety friend is what we call it. So, because it's hard to talk to people, you know, to adults about something that's happened that's maybe intimate or personal, and there's a lot of shame associated with having been a victim or now being a survivor of a traumatic experience. Lots of shame, lots of guilt, lots of fear. So anytime that you can talk to someone that will listen with an open and non-judgmental ear, then you're definitely on the right path, and you're starting on the right track. And therapy, yes, while it can be expensive, there are a lot of agencies and ways to have free therapy services or social work services. So like at Kristi House, we see youth from ages 17 and down. If you're over the age of 18, we do have partner agencies that we can refer people to. And unfortunately in this country, and it continues to be highlighted, that mental health and social like mental health issues are not addressed as well as they should be, but that is starting to change. So even in the school system, I mean, counselors, and I know people don't really like to talk to counselors, but counselors do have good resources, right? And it is a good starting point. So what's important is like you get it out. So even if you have no one to talk to, journal, write, play music, like express yourself, like find something to like have an outlet, a healthy coping outlet. Not just like, sitting around like, smoking weed all day and drinking, like that's not healthy. That's not a coping outlet that will just have you further spiral down. So healthy coping skills are important too.
Come on. Woo. I got a testimony. I want to know my testimony. Talk to me. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vianney, you were gonna go ahead.
Yeah. So we may have teens who are interested in taking your career path. So can you tell us about your journey and like what made you interested in going down this path?
So my journey is interesting. So I, like I said, I'm from Miami. I played volleyball in college, so I'm a Division I collegiate athlete. I went to Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, so shout out Rattlers Strike. And I went to work in the business industry, corporate retail after college, and it was probably one of the most boring things I've ever done in my life. Hey, Rachel with the volleyball. That's awesome. So when I was working in corporate retail, though, like I knew I wanted to get my master's, and I knew I just wanted to be in something that I was actually interested in. So I got my master's in sports marketing from Northwestern University in Chicago. And that was really what started me along my path that opened me up to yoga. And when I found yoga in combination with sports and business, that's when I realized that, like, for me, what's most important is about doing heart-centered, purpose-filled work, purpose-driven work. Like, I cannot sell widgets. I'm like the worst widget seller ever. Like, I have to do something that's heart-centered, that makes a difference for people. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I like to say, like, find out what's important to you and then follow your path in that direction. Because I've worked for several nonprofits, not just with, in the trauma field. I've worked in faith-based nonprofits, food and nutrition nonprofit, and now I'm here at Kristi House. And that has always also mirrored my...
A great one that will have no sense of humor. That one, it don't have to worry about kind of like defense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parent life.
Parent life, yes. Little factoids about animals. So, but finding your path, and then that path can take you in a variety of directions. I didn't know that I wanted to do nonprofit work, but nonprofit work is such heart-centered, like people-centric work that I've been able to insert myself in various nonprofits and felt very happy and fulfilled. In terms of the yoga aspect, for me, yoga was something that found me at a time when I needed healing, physical healing, literally. I had just torn my ACL coaching volleyball, busted up my knee, got surgery, and that was part of my rehabilitation process. But it also was part of my healing journey, like in just transforming my life. When I moved back down here to Miami, I wasn't into yoga. Like I was, going clubbing on South Beach like everybody else. And I was like, just kicking it hard and like living that Miami lifestyle, which is, fast and fun. And it's also not very sustainable. You will get burnt out. Your wallet and your body, you will get like burnt out very quickly. And so I was at a turning point in my life where I just needed some change, and yoga really provided that for me, because it really, not only does it heal from the inside out, but there's also like a really large community component, and community is so important to me. Building community, having people around you that can hold you up and see you in your highest, really support you in moving forward. And through that, I got my 200-hour yoga certification at a studio now on Miami Shores called my 305 Yoga. I started, that's like my home studio. I taught there for several years. And I also started volunteering with Connection Coalition, which is a nonprofit that provides free yoga and mindfulness programs to at-risk youth. And now I'm a trainer for them, so I facilitate a 15-hour certification training, trauma-informed training for people who want to be engaged in that type of work. So, and now you know, 2 years ago, I started Brown Goddess Collective as a wellness space for brown and black women. So I think one of the lessons that I continue to learn is that there are no straight paths. Like, that idea of like going on a straight path is like a myth. And I used to struggle a lot with that because I had so many interests and I felt like my path was like a little bumblebee, and I thought that that was like bad and wrong. But now I realize that there is no straight path, and all paths lead to the exact place where you're supposed to be ultimately. But if you're interested in yoga, there's so many resources out there. You can follow Brown Goddess Collective on Instagram and Facebook, of course. But start with, you know, some free classes. You can now, all these courses out here are free and available. And just start trying. Like, just start trying different things without thinking that you have to commit to anything. Like, you don't have to commit to anything other than just being yourself. And actually, when you're yourself and when you're living like your authentic self, opportunities will literally come to you. And because that's what you're attracting. So just be yourself.
I like that you said, not that it's wrong to be in the business of selling and whatnot, but you needed heart-centered work. And that was bars right there. Oh.
For sure, and that's definitely something we definitely encourage the teens. I know personally, like, when it comes to like college and what they should pursue, I'm like, hey, just go for what your passion is and go on from there, whether it's music, whether it's photography, film, whatever we teach, you know, in our space. To definitely go for that and not like chase money, you know, like the American dream, you know, teaches us. But but I know for me, like personally, like photography came to me. I never took a photography class in my life. It just happened for me. So I could definitely, you know, I'm a witness to that. So thank you for this amazing conversation. Like, I could go on for hours. Like, this is really, really good.
We have another hour, right?
What happened?
We have another hour?
If you guys are down. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm having like a girl crush moment because I was super excited when Colin told me you were coming, because I have my yoga teaching certificate. I just made a year. I did my 200-hour in New York, and yeah, but I have some injuries, so that's why the doctor told me I had to take a break from it and do some alternative healing. So I think your journey is really inspiring and really relatable, because I went to school for media, and I've sort of just taken different paths. And you're right, like, society tells you that you have to take one straight path, or you may have like outside influences. And when I said I was going to do yoga, they were like, but you were just doing modeling and media and all this stuff. But definitely, that was definitely some gems that you dropped, and it's really great to meet you. And I would love to go to one of your events.
We have virtual events all the time. Yeah, stay connected, and thank you for that. And yeah, thank you for that. I received that energy. I'm so glad that that you see yourself through me.
Sure.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, Rachel, you go.
How can we, with you, I was going to share Instagram, Facebook, like how can the teens too, especially?
Yeah, so, well, for Kristi House, you can find us at Kristi House, CAC, which is Child Advocacy Center. You can visit us at kristihouse.org if you feel like you need some support. We are still offering our services both virtually and starting to do more things in person. For me personally, you can find me at Brown Goddess Collective. It's Brown Goddess _collective on Instagram. That's the easiest way to find me, to connect with me. I am also on Facebook, but Instagram is probably best. Yeah, either one of those. And if you want to email me, it's just browngoddesscollective@gmail.com. and Kristi House information is on the website.
Yes, definitely. Yes, go and follow, all those resources, and definitely reach out, whoever's watching this. If you do feel like whatever we talked about and brought up, does relate to you, definitely reach out to those resources. Rachel, I think, did you have did you have something to say before
I
we
feel
close
like
out?
we talked, but I just want to say I really appreciate you coming on, and everything that you said is really important to hear. I know that personally, sometimes I'm really aware that, doing mindfulness practices and really taking the time for breathing and such, it really always brings me to a stronger place. But sometimes I always have some kind of fear or resistance to doing that nevertheless. And it's really strange, but it happens continuously. So I really appreciate, I think sometimes we do need somebody else to kind of lead us to that healing space. And I hope that we can all, as teachers and educators, people that are with teens and mentors, that we can take your advice and become that person as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very great point. I just actually posted about this the other day, is that if you do feel, because we just acknowledge that strong feelings can come up, sometimes people feel scared, panic, or even sad. And if you do feel those feelings are too intense or overwhelming, then please don't push it. Feel free to stop, right? If closing your eyes doesn't feel safe, then keep your eyes open. If sitting up doesn't feel safe, you can just lay down. You can look at a candle, look at the sun, you can take a walk in nature, anything, really anything that you can do to just kind of bring yourself back to like feeling easy again, right? And that's not always, doesn't always come just through sitting and meditating. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yes. Can everyone give the applause emoji real quick, the reaction, just so we could thank Shante. Thank you so much for speaking with us, taking this opportunity, giving sacrificing your time. You could have been doing anything else, and for giving this opportunity to speak to us. We really appreciate it. And we hope that one day, once quarantine's over, you could come into our space and definitely do a workshop, a breathing, meditating workshop or something. I think that'd be really awesome.
I would love that.
Oh, I know they need some help. Let me just say that. So,
Thank you, Chris, for that. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in to this amazing virtual broadcast. I'm definitely going to rewatch this one for sure. Guys, don't forget, we will be back Monday for our next podcast. Our game show podcast is going to be cool. Definitely want to tune into that. And definitely sharing your comments. You could share comments, whatever, your feedback on what you thought of this. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shante.
Thank you for having me. Have a beautiful day. Namaste, everybody.
You too. Namaste. Bye, guys.
All right, you guys.